NCS's Assault Suit series, Lanos and Vulcan, aka Target Earth and Cybernator by DreamWorks and Konami, released 1990 and 93 respectively. The basic plotline is as follows. While what we're looking at here is set in 2201 AD, the latter choice we're about to look at later takes place a decade before. An intergalactic war rages on between a ruthless cyborg army under command by rogue expatriate Earthlings and Earth's own defense league. It's now up to a capable, gallant assault suit pilot, Rax, hailing from Jupiter's own Earth Defense League base on Ganymede, to put a standstill to this anarchic conflict before even more hell continues to break the fuck loose. The theme, along with the plot, is pretty much reminiscent of Gundam, Macross, Votoms, Dunbine, Orgus, Govarian, and the like. At the start of each mission, you're given an opportunity to train your assault suit, except in later missions after this first one. Your D-pad not only moves your mech around, but also aims his main weapon, depending on the aiming mode set in the options screen beforehand, or altered by pushing A, B, and C simultaneously in-game while paused. As for the main controls, A fires your weapon, B makes your mech jump, as well as fly with a booster pack which are awarded later on, and C swaps out your weapons on the fly, which can also be done while the game's paused. Following your short training period, you're given a briefing of what's to be expected in each mission. You're then treated to picking out your secondary weapons, because you're gonna need every bit of backup firepower as this intense game drags on. As for the series of missions, you have to take out a massive as hell enemy warship upon reaching a certain point outside of the base, stage a rendezvous with another platoon, and retreating to Earth via their shuttle upon reaching the opposite side of your home base, and even patrol your main battleship throughout the cosmos in Zero-G to name a few. While attempting to fulfill every given task, you're endlessly wiping out every enemy in sight, droids, walkers, and the whole nine. With the obvious exception of your standard machine gun, which reloads after a brief grace period, every other secondary weapon has limited ammo, and must be used in the most decisive moderation possible. However, I'd keep a very close lookout on the energy meter of my mech if I were you. It tends to go down very rapidly depending on how grave your enemy encounters turn out to be, despite its stable recovery during appropriate grace periods, a la Godzilla on NES. However, that rarely even lightens any rough situation you're in. And during certain missions, you have a team of bronze-colored assault suit NPC backup fighters, and even an attack craft assisting you in even the tightest situations. Upon completing every mission, you're graded depending on your performance, and are awarded extra and more suitable weapons and accessories for much improved attack and defense. As much of an understatement as it is, or it turns out to be, on paper it's an outstanding idea, but in practice, however, that's another frickin' story in and of itself. Aside from attacking, certain landscapes upon which your suit travels can get rather rugged, if smooth, depending on the material, and can make your movement rather awkward at times. And the same story goes with the controls, though they're not too damn convoluted. Then again, they could have used a bit more tune-ups left and right. Now, in terms of challenge, as mentioned before, your ass tends to get handed back to you in a junkyard pile very quickly depending on your actions. No wonder this game's considered to be one of the craziest difficult Genesis games of all time. Seriously, it makes Rare and Dreadwest Battletoads look like a shit-all walk in the park. You only get 1 life and 2 continues, which only happens if you make it to the second mission and beyond. So as always, I'd use them wisely if I were you. Average as they are, even for a Genesis game released in 1990, not long before Sonic no less, the graphics are actually eye-catching, from the detailed bases and battleships, to the assault suits of both your main EDL outfit, and even the bloodthirsty enemies. And how the hell can you go wrong with not only the environmental backgrounds, both in outer space and on Earth, as well as the interior enemy bases, not to mention the added effects detail, for example the explosions, the lightning rays, and even the shrapnel that pops out when you reach the Earth's atmosphere. As for the music, while it's somewhat forgettable and falling short of pizzazz, the soundtrack composed by Takashi Suzuki is about as addictive as Shrooms, Pineapple Express, or even Alabama Kush. Shit, if I had to pick a fave, I'd definitely have to go with the main theme, heard in each and every odd-numbered stage, starting with the first. Sure, they might throw most gamers off for a minute or two considering the intense struggles you're faced with throughout, same story with the sound effects. But let's just say they put even Tommy Tallarico's compositions to absolute shame. And concerning Target Earth's replayability, due to the aforementioned high as every skyscraper in the world stacked together challenge level, of course that's in the cases of the later stages, you'll want nothing more than to be diving right back into this game over and over, as well as the next entry I'm about to discuss, like your damn dear life depended on it. Exhibit B, Cybernator, aka Vulcan. The basic storyline, as mentioned before, is that it takes place a decade before the last game we looked at, Target Earth. Another intergalactic war rages on between the Federation and the Axis nations, concerning the dwindling supply of fossil fuels, and even the rights to lunar territories, for lack of better words, real estate on the moon. Serving under the formal mentioned outfit, a 22-year-old Pacific States Marine Corps Federation assault suit trainee-turned-pilot, Jake Brain, intends to once and for all, as we'd expect, halt this unexpected clash by infiltrating the Axis' ambitions with his teammates by his side on board the Federation battleship Versus, especially that super hot communications officer Kreia Coral, and even annihilate the ever-loving fuck out of the Axis' newly engineered superweapon Buildvorg, which puts even the likes of Megatron to absolute shame, through 7 excessive missions no less. Just like Target Earth, otherwise known as Lanos, the gameplay and controls are pretty much the same spiel here. You're given a detailed briefing for each mission, which you can actually skip, and you're thrown right into the action with your own damn mech. The basic controls, aside from using your D-pad to move it around, as well as control its aim, which, unlike Target Earth, sports a very fluid 360-degree pattern by comparison, include and are composed of Y to fire your desired weapon, B to jump and hold down to activate your mech's booster pack, which only lasts a brief time period, A to make your mech dash, X to swap out your weapon on the fly, even while paused, and the shoulder buttons, L's to hold the position of your mech's weapon, no matter what direction it aims, and finally R to raise its shield, and it's a huge necessity for avoiding massive damage, especially since your mech is an open target for attack, and even bring up your map simply by pausing. Weapons include, but aren't limited to, your standard Vulcan gun, as well as a punch attack, your missiles, which are about as useless as Ritalin, a laser which makes even those in the Gradius series seem less powerful, and the ever so rumored, not to mention the most powerful weapon ever, the fucking napalm cannon, which can be unlocked, as it will be mentioned later. And they can all not only be procured by collecting W icons, but can also be upgraded by collecting special P icons, making even Megas XLR look like a whiny bastard child preschool edition of Ultraman and Rick's mech from Robotech. You can even restore your mech's life using H icons, and you'll need every last bit of them if you want to stay alive, not just using your shield of course. With the exception of every other weapon in your mech's arsenal, those useless ass missiles are limited, regardless of its power level, and must all be used sparingly, or according to the situations that call the most for them. As for this game's itinerary of missions, you're assigned to infiltrate the first of many enemy colonies and eradicate its main engine block for a laser cannon, wipe out its mobile artillery craft after flying through an ass ton of asteroids, which if you run into any of them will equal instant fucking death. Worm your ass into a base located within a meteor strike-ridden fortress in order to open up a lunar route, as well as dismantle its engines before even more shit gets intense, and even come face to face with the Axis' ace pilot Beldark, whom you'll run into time and time again, to name a few. Should you fail any, if a few of these missions, the game will still continue. However, you'll end up with an outcome that's hardly worth drooling over, similar to Revenge of Shinobi and even Comic Zone. As for the overall control scheme, they can take some time to acclimate to, just like Target Earth, but they're way more smoother than before, despite the annoying as ball split-second delay for certain commands. Concerning Cybernator's challenge, in comparison to Target Earth, the difficulty here is nothing short of well balanced, considering you'll have way more enemy mechs and humans to confront along the way, as well as potential opportunities to get your assault suit powered up by the very end, and even plot out which weapons are appropriate for which situation and so forth. Upon making it to at least the 5th and or 6th missions, if your strategies and tactics aren't up to snuff by then, you might as well just consider yourself fucked. You only get 1 life and 3 continues, or 6 using a special code, which will also be mentioned later. As for the graphics, not to make any blatant understatements on this one aspect alone, but the graphics here are astounding beyond belief, and dare I say it, are light years better than Target Earth, if maybe by not that much. But NCS wasn't fucking around here. As always, it's not just the traditional intergalactic and Earth backgrounds. An immeasurable deal of attention was paid to the animations and movements of certain mechanical designs, such as those of the Axis enemy forces, not to mention the Federation forces, including your own mech. And even the ammunition and atmospheric detail and the appropriate hues depending on the setting of your mech and the stage in which it's participating. They really went above and beyond, making this entry the greatest beyond compare, ass-kicking, shit-demolishing experience ever! Composed by Masanao Akahori for Opus Corporation, despite the overall soundtrack being nothing more than standard anime fare, it's all-around gleeful to listen to, and they all possess a myriad of mindsets depending on the mission you're carrying out. If I had to pick my top 5 tracks from this game alone, they would definitely have to be We've Gotta Do It, the first stage, and the 5th one heard later. The last few minutes of Who's Praying for a Soldier, the intro theme. No Time No Shield, the boss theme. The Stage 3 Section B theme, Living Possibility, also heard during the remainder of the Stage 5 shuttle boss. And even the Stage 3 Section C theme, Armed Ghost, also heard in Stage 6 Section B. Not to mention the final boss. Concerning Cybernator's replayability, as mentioned before, you get one of 2 endings depending on your progress towards helping to fulfill Jake's innermost intentions. And what's more, you'll get to alternate your tactics for each offensive method every time you play. Oh, and one other thing I forgot to mention. There are a myriad of differences between both the original Japanese versions and their international releases of both this game and Target Earth, aka Lanos, including the following. In the original Japanese version of Target Earth, Assault Suits Lanos, a left-behind comrade gets his ass fried by the impact of the atmosphere when you clear Stage 3, yet the irony is, if your mate gets too close, your ass ends up meeting the same goddamn fate. As for Cybernator, aka Vulcan, the dialogue portraits are removed for the international versions, and most of the in-game action is frozen for the duration of the dialogue. In the final stage, a scene was cut out for the international versions, involving a confrontation between your assault suit and the Axis president, as well as the latter mentioned character's eventual suicide. There was even a sound test in the prototype edition of the game, but Konami and NCS did away with it completely. What the fuck? Notwithstanding those obvious changes, Cybernator, aka Vulcan, is still a blast to try out, no pun intended. And as mentioned before, you'll be immersed into both this and Target Earth in more ways than you think. So my final verdict on both Target Earth and Cybernator, if you can't take the heat, stay out of the kitchen, and that's where the difficulty of both these 2 games come in. But then again, if you're in the mood for some no bullshit, excessive futuristic mech action rivaling even that of Gundam and other mech anime and manga series spanning over 3 to 4 decades if less, I highly suggest keeping these 2 in mind, as well as their original Japanese counterparts, and to a lesser extent, maybe their sequels. Until then, this is the Hardcore Retro God signing off.